What's up, guys? This is LaPierre coming to you with drum lesson on how we can take our straight ahead eighth note rock grooves to a whole new level. Okay, before we were just doing eighth notes on the hi-hat, bass drum on 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4, sounded like this. So what we're going to start doing to make that sound way cooler is start putting bass drums by itself in between our eighth notes on the hi-hat. Okay, so our first groove, we're going to put the bass drum on the of 1, if we're counting 16th notes. So, eighth notes on the hi-hat, bass drum by itself on the of 1. So that will sound like 2 hits with the hi-hat, and then right after that second hit on the hi-hat, bass drum by itself. Okay, so physically we're just doing right, kick. Okay, so putting that in with our eighth note rock groove, the whole thing sounds like this. So you notice I'm just putting in a bass drum by itself right before our hands come down on count number 2. Okay? 1 and a 2. 1 and a 2. Okay? Show you the whole thing again. Okay? So the beat stays the same. We're just putting in a bass drum by itself right before that first snare drum hit, or right after our second eighth note on the hi-hat. 1 and a 2. Now this is very important to practice with your metronome because you don't want that bass drum slowing down the eighth notes with your right hand. Okay? You do not want see how the bass drum came a little too late and it slowed down my eighth notes. Okay? You want these to be consistent. So with my Roland TD15 brain, I've set my metronome to 70 beats per minute, and I also set it to count eighth notes for us. Okay? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and because you want that right hand to be lining up with those eighth notes. And it's up to your bass drum to sneak in between those eighth notes. So let's check that out with 70 beats per minute. 2 and 3 and 4 and. See how those eighth notes didn't change, but my bass drum was going in between. You can come up with some very cool sounding grooves. Another one, let's put the bass drum by itself on the E of 2. Okay, so right after those hands together on 2, bass drum by itself. Then we're going to come back on the hi-hat for the and of 2. Okay, so that whole little section, okay, hands together, bass drum, right hand on the hi-hat. So that whole little pattern starts on number 2. So let's take that groove again. Now the bass drum is coming after our snare drum hit by itself. Check it out. Again, very important to do with metronome. Set to 70 beats per minute. It's going to give us our eighth note, making sure that right hand always lines up with that eighth note. And the bass drum is now coming by itself after our snare hit, which is on the E of 2. 2 and 3 and 4. Pretty cool. Now, with that in mind, you can have that straight ahead eighth note groove and now put a bass drum in between any hi-hat hit you want. And you come up with some very, very cool funky beats. Let's just improvise a little bit. I'll show you some cool stuff that you can come up with being able to put that bass drum in between that right hand. Okay, so some of those bass drums lined up with the eighth notes on the hi-hat, but the other faster sounding ones were going in between. So play around with it, start putting that bass drum, any of those 16th note slots that you want, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, you can play some very, very cool stuff. Thanks for watching. See you next time, guys.